you're playing?
My name is Benya Stewart, and I'm part of the project called Slavalachia, and we were playing a mixture of folk music from America, Ukraine, and Belarus.
I'm Brother Hill, a folk musician from Ohio, USA, and we have been forging a folk alliance with Ukrainian folk musicians and Belarusian folk musicians for the past 2.5 years. And we came to Europe to play solidarity shows across Poland and Lithuania to show American, specifically Ohioan folk people's support for the Ukrainian people and Ukrainian folk traditions during this time of great need. And we've had a platform that we can work on that with Slavalachia that we've been building for years, and now it's been a time where we have to show up. We call it an alliance, so we now show up to support each other however we can, and for us that's playing folk music, supporting cultural traditions from the grassroots, people to people.
How you came with this idea, like why Slavs, I don't know, in States, how you came with this?
Why Slavs, he said?
Yeah, like why this Slavic thing?
We happened to meet a man named Sergiuk or Sergei Dovusha, and that happenstance connection was through our friends Bartholomew Kuraga and Nadia Ilkovich, who organized to bring Sergei for a show in Athens, Ohio, 2019. And we were new friends with Bart and Nadia at the time, and they were excited to bring, they're Belarusians, and they were excited to bring a Belarusian folk musician to Athens, where they were studying. Nadia was at Ohio University there, and that's the town that I live in and Brett lives in from time to time. And yeah, we just ended up going to see this show, and Sergiuk's capacity for spreading Belarusian folk music and his ability to engage an American audience, even though his English was not particularly strong, was really captivating for me, and we both really enjoyed the performance and ended up asking him if he wanted to jam the next day, which he did want to do, which was pretty cool. He's a very open guy, always game to play with new musicians. And that next night, history was made. We combined Appalachian music and Slavic music into the wee hours of the morning, and had just an absolute blast with him and a whole house full of other Slavic folks from around, not just Belarus, but around the region. And there was something, a kind of special chemistry that happened that night, and ever since we've been on kind of a journey deeper and deeper into how Slavic folk traditions and Appalachian folk traditions can mesh, intermingle, and support one another.
And the ongoing result of working on this project has been that we have found multiple avenues in which Slavs and Appalachian Americans have shared historical struggles and shared loves for the land, loves for our communities and where we come from and how we're tied to the land, and then also a true hatred of oppression and of tyrants and of those who would seek to tear down people's traditions. And to us, folk music isn't just like a genre. To us, folk music is people's music, and so this is music that represents who you are and where you come from. And we didn't really go out seeking for Slavs to jam with. It's just sort of how it happened, and then we all recognized, like, this is an alliance if we can support each other and we can give each other avenues of where our historical struggles have been, and songs that have been born from that are very relevant to current contemporary struggles of peoples of Belarus and Ukraine. And now in a time like this, when the whole world needs to be concerned about the actions of tyrants and of oppressors, we can together provide a platform for the whole world to sing songs that can shout out against that and speak out against that kind of oppression. And unfortunately, the battleground for this kind of war has fallen on Ukraine, a place we've traveled a lot and that we love very deeply and that we've spent a lot of time in solidarity with. And so that's really why we're here now. I mean, we've been building this idea for years because we loved it. We recorded an album last year in Ternopil, Ukraine with Lesa Komodata at Shpital Records that we wrote in the Carpathians in August of 2021. And this album covers a lot of themes of speaking out against oppression, of the pains and atrocities of war, and of our love for the land and where we come from. And now it turns out that that's a more relevant and appropriate message than ever. And now is when we have been given the choice to either show up and show that we believe in that, or leave it behind and not support what we've been saying we're living for, and that just wasn't an option. So we had to come here. We, in our community in Ohio, showed up to raise roughly $40,000 through shows, through folk shows that we threw, and across Ohio in 4 different cities. And the people of Ohio were just openly and readily willing to support this cause however they could. And they really just wanted to do something. And this was a platform that showed that they could, as people across the ocean, have a full capacity to help people directly, not giving money to just some NGO, but like actually delivering medical supplies, buying medical supplies in the United States with that money and bringing them here as pretty much a beacon of light and love from people far away. And that's all been made possible by people's music and by people's love and compassion.
So for you, music is like communication, like the instrument for doing something. How do you say? Because I'm also asking people why you are making music, because it's maybe not obvious. So some people are saying because I can not do some other thing or something. So what is your this intention? Why you're doing this?
That's just what we do. We can't live without playing music, and we're going to make music with whoever is put in our path to make music with at any given point. Even if we walk outside and there's someone tapping on a drum, we'll probably walk up and start singing with them. And especially in a project like this, where the music is the language, that's the main way we've communicated with a lot of our Ukrainian and Belarusian band members when we don't have a shared singular language. I mean, everyone speaks at least some English, but music is our language, and to us, our music is our love as well. So if together we can make music be a language of love for each other, then that's just how we live, I suppose.
Yeah, it's felt particularly poignant to have such a mission for our music. Brett and I have, we're lifetime musicians. We've sung since we were young. We both learned instruments growing up. We've always we've just played music. That's what we've done. And of course, music for music's sake and for enjoyment's sake is a beautiful thing in and of itself. But as the war began and started to rage, and the first round of shows were organized by Brett and Amy Delac, our good friend, and I came back from being up in Maine in the winter, and our forces kind of coalesced in Ohio, and we saw the success of the first 3 shows in Ohio and how much money could be raised in a short amount of time, and more than just the money, how much compassion could be built together between Ohioans coming together and it's not really just about us playing music for the people. It's, our music is a way of incorporating and integrating the people in the audience to be a part of the emotional experience of watching the war unfold and finding ways to support emotionally and then practically, and in all these different ways. So the music is this vehicle for compassion and for humans coming together even at this great distance. And I think it's just been incredibly poignant for us to see the thing that we love kind of fall into place in a way that does a thing that, like, I don't know how else we could do this, but the music, there's something about the folk music that is the perfect vehicle for this type of support. So it's been a real honor to be a part of that.
So how it was before, so for example, some people which are coming to your concerts, they know something about Ukrainian music, or I don't know, so maybe which Ukrainian music is also in context of media, of news, I don't know, in States, for example, maybe you just, your friends listen to something, so is people knowing the music?
We'll be honest, most people in Ohio don't have any connection to Ukraine or idea of anything having to do with Ukrainian music. Just simple Shire folk. And we are community advocates. We work on a lot of different community projects across Ohio, and especially in Athens and Dayton. And most people there haven't had any relation to Ukraine or understanding of Ukraine outside what we've been doing with Slavalachia for the past few years. Mm-hmm. And so as community advocates, people have been interested in Ukraine and Belarus, most of them for the first time, through what we've done and through observing us on social media when we're traveling there, or listening to our album that we've only released since the war began now, our Slavalachia album. And so, in all honesty, a lot of people turn to us in that time to see what could be done, and especially if we can throw shows together and we can give people an opportunity to directly interact. People are very grateful, because otherwise they felt totally helpless. They're watching what's happening on the news, they're hearing about the atrocities that are happening in Mariupol and Bucha, and they have no idea what they can do about it. But they can come and hear us sing some Ukrainian songs and some Belarusian songs and American songs about what's going on in Ukraine, and it gives them an opportunity to feel like they can interact. Also, it gives businesses, when we throw these shows, we do silent auctions and raffles, and that gives businesses the opportunity to donate things, donate items, donate resources and goods that can be used to raise money for Ukraine. So it's not just people even, it's businesses, it's other musicians who want to donate performances, and this has given people an opportunity to understand Ukraine in a whole new light, and in a way that they feel like they can actually interact with, instead of just going to a conference or watching a film or something like that. They're actually directly interacting with it, and that means a lot to people. And there is, I feel like, a fortunate, I don't know if you can say resurgence, but there is like a wealth of Ukrainian art that is emanating across the world right now. We're huge fans. I'm personally a massive fan of Dr. Baraka, and I love what they do. We've had the pleasure of performing at the same festival as them at Zahid Fest last year, and we got to meet them and spend just a little bit of time with them. And before that, I loved what they were doing, and I think they're probably my favorite band in the world right now. But then, when they came to the United States on their tour after the war began, and it gives me goosebumps still thinking about them and the vibe in that room when I saw them in Chicago, of what they're doing for Ukraine and dedicating their time and all of the resources that they're making from these shows to Ukraine. People see that, and it's left a big impact. So I see that as being a big factor now, as Ukrainian artists abroad raising awareness in one way or another. So there's a new a new time for Ukrainian identity to really solidify itself instead of being somewhat watered down in post-Soviet times or questionable what's Ukrainian, what is not, what is just Soviet or something else. It's like now this like galvanized Ukrainian identity is something that we feel honored to be alongside with our Ukrainian musicians that we play with and the places, the people we record with and the artists we work with in Ukraine. So I mean, it's now is a time when we feel privileged and blessed to be a part of this zeitgeist that is a new Ukrainian identity abroad, not just for the diaspora, but for the people in Ukraine as well.
Yeah, well said. I just want to add a short piece that I think, as important as it is that we are showing American and especially Ohioan support in the Slav lands in these extremely troubled times, I think it's very important that we are exposing our American friends and family and wider network to this real culture that we are so privileged to get to interact with and learn these songs from local musicians and traditional musicians, because I think it is an unfortunate reality that it's very easy as an American to be very isolated from the rest of the world at large, and especially countries that have traditionally fallen behind the Iron Curtain and like have this Soviet history. Most Americans don't know the first thing. I mean, both of us, we really had no, especially with Belarus, which was the original connection point in this project, I had no idea of anything about the dealings or the workings or the folk culture or I didn't know Minsk was the capital. Just to be totally honest, I didn't know the first thing. So that was part of what was so engaging. Like, oh, there's a Belarusian folk musician who's going to play in tiny little Athens, Ohio. There's no way I was going to miss that. And it's something I've been so grateful to Bart and Nadia for exposing us, and now we are here to keep moving that forward. And I know we brought Sergic to Ohio to perform some of these benefit concerts with us, and it was a real privilege introducing him to a lot of our close friends and seeing him interact and jam with us after the shows, and to see him interact with the crowd, and for the crowd in these different shows to see him playing his hurdy-gurdy and hear him singing his Belarusian songs. And there's just I think there's a real potency to introducing Americans to a folk musician who represents a culture so well, as someone like Sergic does, and just seeing a lot of those cogs turning in people's minds as they, instead of just hanging out with people from various cities in Ohio, meeting someone from really another spot in the world who really represents a traditional folk music. It was just very poignant. So I think that is an equally important piece in all this, and I'm glad that it is flowing both ways.
So you said that this Slavic traditional music, Ukrainian version, is somehow similar in context maybe of history, yes, of topics like your music. So two questions. So what are people who are listening to in Ohio, and why are they coming to this concert particularly? So they are finding for themselves something similar to their culture, or just for just to support, or this out of politics, so out of of this thing, so in context of topic, of culture, of something.
The context of the culture probably isn't readily obvious to people when they see it. When they hear Ukrainian or Belarusian music in Ohio, they're not gonna immediately think that this is so similar. And in a lot of ways, it's not. There are some very particular ways in which it's similar. as if we're talking about just the raw facts, like a couple instruments, like a jaw harp, trimba, and fiddles. Other than that, you know, there's not really much that's that similar to our musical style. And as I mentioned before, topics like, you know, connection to the land, connection to the environment, and the way that's influenced the characteristic of the people, and then also, you know, a true hatred of oppression and a true disdain for being controlled by anyone, and a desire for sovereignty and sovereign identity. But our work is so based around showing people how similar we all are, and that we're not all so different in the end, you know, and that's, so the music itself doesn't immediately make that obvious. With the work we do in Slavalachia, you can hear how well it works together. It works together very well, and that's something we've kind of frontiered in creating and giving the space for that to evolve organically. But a real base platform of this is for all peoples. It's not just for Slavs and Appalachians. This is a representation that any peoples in the world can find common ground to stand on together. Any people in the world can find a common ground that they can believe in together. And music is one of those things. I mean, music is something that across the world, no matter where you're at, people are making music one way or the other. Whether it's garbage or whether it's great, it doesn't matter. You're making music, and there's ways that you can help support each other to keep doing that. And it doesn't have to be so similar. It doesn't have to sound exactly the same. It doesn't even have to make sense. Because so many people for so long were like, why Ukraine? Why Belarus? And why are you doing this? Especially in times when we were just traveling over here and we didn't really have many recordings yet for people to access. So like, a lot of people just didn't click or make sense. And now in a time like this, when the war's going on and after the revolution in Belarus, it's very, very obvious to people, and people are extremely grateful for the fact that someone, a group like this, and all the people that are involved in this project, the solid 10 people that are really involved in Slavalachia, have believed in this. And now, at a time when you have to put rubber to the road and you have to show up, it makes sense to people completely. And that's just a light we've followed because we believe in each other, and we believe in each other's traditions, and we believe in a cause of joining together in solidarity. But it's very obvious to people now when you see that, oh, we can actually make good on this. We can actually do something with this. We can actually save lives with this kind of work. Literally save lives, you know. And there's many ways you could do that. Be creative and figure out how you can help support people in a situation like this. Fortunately, we've been given a platform we've been building for almost 3 years to continue to do this kind of work, and now it's more important than ever. So, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but it makes sense to people anytime you see one person who waves one flag standing next to another person who waves this flag to just come together under a banner of love. It doesn't have to make sense immediately. It's just about people, supporting people. And that's our whole premise around this, is that it's grassroots as fuck. This is like just people supporting people from the grassroots. And you can make anything work. We live in a crazy globalized time. Like, you can combine rap and you know, Chinese traditional folk music on a guzheng. Like, you can do anything you want now, but it really is only going to matter if you're doing it for the love of uniting people under one banner, and recognizing we're all human and we can all support each other in any amount of ways.
So you obviously said that music is the language, but I also heard that you are singing in Ukrainian. Yeah, it was like you tried to do this. So have you learned this? Are you transcribing this like into Latin letters, or are you reading Cyrillics now?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of help learning to sing in Ukrainian. We've had a lot of patient teachers, like Marichka especially. Marichka Chichkova is our bandmate in Slavalachia. And it was a real struggle at first, and we definitely did use Latinized text, and didn't put a huge amount of attention on like understanding what the words were. Like, we really just had to focus on how do we make these sounds, even remotely similar to what they are in reality, and I think we've come a long way from there. We still have a long way to go to sound fluent, but at this point, yeah, Brett and I can both certainly read Cyrillic, and our Ukrainian skills are rudimentary, but we're working on them. It's difficult. I mean, this tour, we've been in Poland most of the time, so and also a few other countries, so it's been difficult to focus on the Ukrainian language specifically, but I think learning how to pronounce Ukrainian has, you know, we really honed in, like especially Oyuhayu, Pridunayu, we really like got that one as clean as it could be, and it seems like people really respond well to that song, and we usually get good compliments on like our pronunciation and stuff. More recently, I learned Pidomene, which is a Western Ukrainian song that many of our friends in Lviv particularly love singing, and it's been like a special song for us. And that was one I have always wanted to learn since hearing it. And just this past winter, I got the text together from our bandmates and kind of put that together. But you know, learning any of these songs takes a lot of concentration and focus, and even still, like the lyrics, the pronunciation is not perfect, but it's just, I think it's important. It's always important to be striving for perfection, but also being patient with yourself and saying, you know, it's more important that I sing this song as well as I can right now and show that I'm working towards this goal of perfection, and show that I'm showing up, and like that this music tradition in Ukraine is very important to me, and these, you know, that's made of songs, so like the thing I can do is learn a song and then perform that song time and time again and get better and better at it, and that's like a real way for us as folk musicians to support the tradition and be a part of the tradition. So it's, you know, I still get comments on certain words here and there, and they're like, there's just certain sounds in the Ukrainian alphabet that are really hard to pronounce, even though I've been trying to do it for like almost 3 years now. So it's just a process, but I'm happy to be doing it, and it's one of my favorite things that we do is sing Ukrainian music. So,
and we have gotten creative with how we you know, as just American folk musicians, how we kind of, the treatments we put on some of these old Ukrainian songs, and we've just recorded an album with Serge Dohisho since the wars began called Three Gardens that we're currently working on mixing and mastering and getting the artwork done for, and it should be out later this year in 2022. But there's particularly a song in that called Uchacha, which is the kind of third Ukrainian song we've been working on particularly, and that we translated the lyrics, and so we're singing this Ukrainian song that just sounds very Ukrainian into English, and it's something we're still kind of working on, but it's you know, giving an opportunity for people that don't speak any Ukrainian in America to actually access some of these old stories, and this one is particularly a pretty tragic and awful old story, but it's like a story that needs to be told in a certain way, and so there's been a sort of creativity and adaptation into how we're still supporting Ukrainian folk traditions even when we're singing in English, and that album really is it's a love letter in a way to Ukraine. It's songs that we sang while we were in Ukraine, old Appalachian songs that they love to hear, songs we learned in Ukraine, singing in the parks until 5 a.m. And they're you know, songs we've written since the war began about the heartbreak we've experienced since then. And then also, you know, with Serge being on the album, it's absolutely got this very thick Belarusian component as well, of a Belarusian coping with the fact that his friends in Ukraine are at war. He can't go back to Belarus because he'd be thrown in prison. his country's in shambles in a certain way as far as like the country that he believes in, like the true Belarusian community, and in Appalachia, and it's not anchored in Minsk, and so this album's like a very contemporary piece to right now, to what's going on in Ukraine and in Belarus, and with us having friends in both places and having a deep care for the future of not just the nation and the country, but the people. So it's been an important coping mechanism for us during this time, because as we said, music is our language, and that's how we show and express love in a real way. So I think this album, when it comes out, Three Gardens, will certainly go to show like a deep love from Ohio and Belarus to Ukraine, and from Belarus to Ukraine. This isn't just an American to Slavic thing. This is like a Belarusian to Ukrainian thing, because especially right now, it's so important for Belarusian people and Ukrainian people to keep that brotherly solidarity that is just anchored in their very being and in the core of their culture. And so that's something we actively want to promote as well. I mean, who are we to promote such a thing? But it's something we believe in, because it breaks my heart to think about Belarusian soldiers potentially stepping foot into Ukraine. That's just, there's so many layers and veins of tragedy involved in this entire situation. So so many things that need to be sung about and dealt with and coped with, and thus give people across the world an opportunity to cope through this music, to understand what's going on, and to have access to feel it, and to hopefully do something about it.
Okay, so I would also to ask about tools you are using. So maybe starting with the instruments, why you are choosing those? Maybe you are using some electronic or also acoustic here. So what is for you instrument?
Well, we are not using electronic instruments at this time. It's very much an acoustic experience, which I mean, we've both dabbled. We've both played in other bands that have had electronic components. It's not that we are opposed to that, but I think part of the folk music experience is that the instrument can be carried with you out into the wild, and that you can make that music anywhere. So I started as a guitar player, and for a lot of the time that I've played folk music, that's been my main instrument. But actually on the first Slavalachia trip, I had an experience when we were up in the Carpathians, where I walked away from the group for a little bit to get some alone time, and had a bit of a realization that I had been wanting to play mandolin for many years and had never given myself the time or space to do that for various reasons, and it was in that moment that I decided to start playing mandolin. And as soon as I got back from that trip, right before COVID started, I purchased the mandolin that I have on this trip. And that's kind of become one of the signature things about the Slavalachia music at this point, because I know that it seems like mandolin is not that familiar of an instrument when we travel in Ukraine, and certainly in Poland, people ask me all the time, just everywhere we've been on this trip, everyone like asks me the name of the instrument, so it's not that familiar. And it's kind of a strange, in some ways, instrument to bring into the mix. Like, it's not the most poignantly Appalachian instrument. I mean, it's an Italian instrument in origin that became more popular in American music really during the bluegrass upheaval of the 60s, when Bill Monroe kind of showed everyone how freaking sweet mandolin could be. But there's something about the instrument that I think lends itself to the project because it can kind of sound at home in various genres pretty easily. I think similar to fiddle, I mean, it is tuned like a fiddle, but it's played with a pick like a guitar, and there's just something about it that I was attracted to because it could kind of feel as comfortable playing medieval music as it can playing old-time American music and everything in between. So I'm glad that that's become my main musical tool during this whole project, because it always feels like I can find something productive to do with that, kind of regardless of the folk tradition we're engaging with. And especially on this trip, we've been playing a lot of Ukrainian folk dances with Marta and Marichka, and it's been like pretty incredible practice for me to, I've been really getting comfortable on the fretboard, voicing chords in different positions around the fretboard, and really digging into it as a rhythmic instrument instead of a melodic instrument. And it's been my favorite particular music thing that's happened on this trip. I really feel like I've unlocked a couple levels of skill in that direction. So yeah, for me, mandolin has been the primary tool for this project at this point.
I've played guitar since I was it's over half my life now, basically since I was 15, and that was always a tool for me to sing to, because before anything I'm a singer. So like singing is my first primary tool for musical conveyance, and it's like my mother raised me singing, and I'm a singer before anything. But the guitar, can be used in so many contexts. It's such a multi-contextual instrument in this day and age, because people across the world, most people can play their folk songs through guitar one way or another. So it's really accessible in that way. And then for the Appalachian side of our project in Slavalachia, just getting those really driving rhythms on guitar, and then especially when they're combined with mandolin. We really wish that our banjo player could be part of this project, because that really ties like an Appalachian room together, but it's just not been the reality. And so guitar is it's a very important tool for us to use in that context. More particularly, my heart is really attached to the drum I play, which is a baran, which is an Irish drum. It's an Irish frame drum, and we play that with our Appalachian band and Hill Spirits. And Hill Spirits is an Appalachian band that's really based on like drawing up the spirits from the Appalachian land and the history, and some of these kind of ignored alleys and pathways of the music of our country. For music for all peoples that come from the lands, not just the ones you pay attention to or the ones that have their recordings released, but like the African Americans that were, in minstrel troops playing pretty much banjo, fiddle, and drum 200 years ago, up to 100 years ago, up to 80 years ago, and that. As far as I see it, I think the drum was like really intentionally removed from a lot of that music, because the drum is our most ancient instrument as humanity, and it goes back to times when we were pagan and shamans were playing the drum, because that that drum beat is like it's like a resemblant of the heartbeat that we have in humanity, and so that drum, I believe, can really summon up from any culture, any cultural perspective, your most ancient of roots. And so when you're forging a new pathway like Slavalachia is, you need that drum because that connects you to your most ancient of days, your most ancient of ways, you know. And this is just, I mean, it's an Irish drum, a baran, yeah, but like this is just as old school as it gets. This is next to the first instruments we ever had as a species. It's just a ring of wood with a skin stretched over it, and you beat it with a stick, a capine in this context. And so that drum to me is really important to this project because especially some of the songs we play that are really war-based tunes, you need that like march and you need that drive and that rhythm, and so that drum to me seems very relevant to, I mean, it's even interesting the fact that it's not Appalachian or Slavic, it's like this Irish drum. But like I said, this is just an ancient piece of technology we have to like summon our most ancient ancestral memories. And so that drum is like a really important tool, I think, for any peoples who are trying to access their most ancient ways and memories. It's just to give that like heartbeat and that pulse. And I mean, there's a part of me that wants to say I'm not against. We live in the era we live in. I'm not against like electronic incorporation in some ways. It's kind of cool. And I mean, even the fact that we're recording, we're using electronic implements to make things like reverb or to make things like delay or just effects on our recordings. So like if you listen to our recordings, yes, there are like very slight electronic implementations, but it's not like we're making beats out of it. It's not like we're creating instruments that aren't there. Everything you hear on those records is an organic instrument that's been played. But I mean, the fact of the matter is we're recording digitally, we're not recording to analog, so it's like there is a digital thumbprint on the fact that we have these recordings, which I'm grateful for, because it's the era we live in and it makes things much more accessible than having to go to a studio and record everything to tape and then transfer it to a lacquer. Yeah, the voice, the guitar, the drum, these are my tools for this project, for sure.
Yeah, you said about recordings, so how are you, what are you recording, how are you promoting your recordings? So for example, I don't know, maybe there are some people who are recording every single concert of the tour, for example, and they choose it. Or are you going to studio making recordings and that's it, so concert live is not important, live recordings is not important for you, or how you deal with it?
Live recordings would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's limited capacity, capability, and budget for all these things. I mean, it's already kind of amazing that we have an album as Slavalachia. It took a lot of resources and it required a lot of generosity on the part of friends and family and supporters of the project. So we're very grateful to have that because it's a very professional piece. Leszek Omadada of Szpital Records did an incredible job with the production of that record, and I'm very proud that 4 of the 10 tracks were recorded live. I really love songs where the band records at the same time. It has a special kind of energy, and that was one of my favorite memories of last summer, was recording those tracks live together in the studio. But yeah, in terms of moving forward recordings, I mean, as Brett mentioned, Three Gardens is another project we have as two of us at Serjuk. So there are more professional recordings coming out. Live recordings would be cool. I mean, Brett and I record on our phones all the time just as reference tracks. That's a big part of our process, is recording jams, recording performances, and then while we're on a bus ride or a train ride or a plane ride or wherever we are, we can go back through those recordings and, you know, listen through. There's always a lot of chaff that you have to skip around, but you're looking for those nuggets, and you can duplicate it and cut that piece, and then it's amazing how sometimes 2 years later we'll be going back through recordings from jams that happened a long time ago with people we don't play music with now even, and find something just marvelous, a marvelous gem, to then be re-inspired by that track and potentially write a whole new song based on it. And that's a really special capability of the digital period now with, you wouldn't release one of these songs necessarily because the fidelity is not to that level, but it is amazing how good some of these recordings sound just on the phone, and we can use them for all sorts of purposes. So I mean, a lot of my writing process has to do with the phone. I mean, I write lyrics on my phone, I make music videos on my phone, I record newer versions of songs I'm working on my phone, and I can go back and reference. So while it is folk music and while we play acoustic instruments, there is a huge role for the digital tools that we have, that it would, without them, it would be much, much harder to do what we do. So I'm grateful for that.
And they definitely come in handy in various ways on this new album, Three Gardens. There's a song, Підтримка, that's been recorded that's, about Drink to Me. This whole song is basically a drinking song. It's a Galician drinking song. And, we were able to go back and find a chunk of a recording we just randomly made at a table at this restaurant up in the Carpathians, the Carpathian Cracker Barrel. And we were sitting around the table and just kind of tapping on the table and just singing this random little ditty, tapping knives and forks on glasses,
singing,
and then it all ends up in this cheers, cheers, and we were able to actually take that recording and put it into the song on the album. And so it's you would have never thought when you're sitting there 9 months prior just singing with your friends at a table, one day this is going to be the opening of the third song in the album, second song in the album, so it's, those kind of digital gems are super important things to be able to take advantage of this day and age. I mean, I'm all about going as organic as it gets. With Hill Spirits, we recorded our album to tape, and then we pressed it to vinyl, and so it's just that is just organic. That's barely any digital fingerprint on that whatsoever. So, we're still totally willing to take advantage of the capabilities of a digital age. But as far as the release of the music, we really we love the platform of Bandcamp. I personally really love what Bandcamp does and what they represent. It's kind of like an artist's free state almost on Bandcamp. You can make your own page, and you can sell your music through there. You can sell your merch through there. Certain days of the month, they all of the proceeds. They don't take any cut whatsoever. It just goes directly to the artists. They've been doing that specifically since the beginning of COVID, and so that's an amazing digital platform to use for the release of music. Obviously, most people don't have CD players these days. It's just reality. But to us, and to me, and I think to any artist, the artwork of the album is of utmost importance. You've got to have this visual representation of what is going on there. And there's many creative ways I've seen people utilizing for having a physical release that doesn't require a CD or a vinyl or a tape. It's maybe just a code, but you still got the artwork with it. And we're really interested in pursuing that in the future for some of our future releases. But to be honest, we press CDs and release CDs because of the artwork. Really. I mean, that's the reason I've got them. I've still got CD players. I still love having it because to me it's like archival work and being able to archive and have something physical. I mean, perhaps it's because I was born in the early 90s. If I was born in 2001, I might not have that connection to CDs, anymore. But to me, I've got a huge collection of CDs that go back years. That's how I was introduced to the most influential music in my life. My life was changed when I got Kid A and Amnesiac by Radiohead on CD. So to me, a CD is still important and relevant. That said, even more important, more relevant this day and age is vinyl to me. Traveling like we are on tour, I can't bring all of the vinyl we've pressed with us, for Hill Spirits and for my own project, Brother Hill. But, vinyl is, to me, the most important physical medium out there, without a doubt. To me, it's It's like, you know, if Moses went up on Mount Sinai and he was given this message from God, he carved it into stone and he brought it down for the people. There's nothing else you can compare that to in music but vinyl. You know, you've got this inspiration you've been given, these songs you've written and put all this effort and sweat and blood and tears into recording, and then you've got it on a physical medium, and it will outlast you, it'll probably outlast your grandchildren. You know, you've got a physical piece. So eventually we absolutely want to press Slavalachia and Three Gardens to vinyl as well, so that our grandchildren and great-grandchildren can still have physical access to these inspired works that we've created. And digital just doesn't have that. It's great in terms of digital because you can access it across the world. So I mean, I'm a full believer in that, and there's no way I wouldn't digitally release stuff now, because how else is someone in Prague going to listen to it? Someone in, you know, Cambodia going to listen to it, and then also in South Africa and in Ohio and in Ukraine. You know, being able to toss something up on the internet like the Slavalachia album that we released with fairly short notice, because we were like, the war started, we've got to release this. Okay, let's pull the trigger. We didn't have to send off and wait for it to be pressed or anything like that. You know, we do have CDs now, but like, all right, let's pull the trigger and give the entire fucking world this album. That's an amazing capability we have this day and age. You can't take for granted. You know, you can release a song that you wrote and recorded this morning, you can release it tonight, and someone can listen to it on the other side of the planet. Like, how could you not appreciate that? You know. But that said, maybe it's like a grassroots folk thing, but I want something physical. I want something that's tangible and that I can hold, and I want to be able to look at the intention that was put into the artwork and read it, you know, just like a book. So there's certainly a balance to be struck between physical and digital medium. It's, you know, it's important to recognize how it fits into your music and your general vibe as well.